We're gonna have you start off the show. Just introduce us, and then no, I'm kidding. We're gonna start off. This is what's gonna happen. We're gonna start off. We have a gentleman here, Sean. He's on the job actually right now. He's got an announcement. He works with us. He's in charge of our social media, and
Okay.
he's also.
All right, Mark. To tell you the truth, we are live right now.
Okay, so we're gonna just do it. This is a different version of Police Off the Cuff. We're gonna call this one. What do you think, Bill? Midday with Police Off the Cuff.
We call not after hours, before hours.
Yeah,
before.
I thought it before hours, but then I was like,
we're night urchins. There's no reason we should be up even at this hour, you know.
Lunchtime with POC. We're having coffee today instead of drinks.
I don't know if we'll have any audience though, you know.
We have a great guest, an author, Brian McDonald. He wrote the book My Father's Gun. We have Sean Linsko. He's got an announcement to make. I'm Mark DeMayo. This is my partner, Bill Cannon, and this is Police Off the Cuff. Lunchtime Police Off the Cuff.
Lunchtime.
We got the early meal today.
This is like going to a bar after a midnight tour, you know.
So Sean, what brings you here today?
So I just wanted to come on today. We had the Multimania Fitness Challenge going on this weekend. Today's the last day of it. Tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Detective Brian Mulkeen. Last time I came on, I was hoping to come on and show off some of the shirts and merchandise that are being sold. It just came to me yesterday, so I want to show it off now. Everyone can go. I'm going to post it on the Instagram, or right now, if you want to go visit No Matter What Apparel, this is what they're selling for the Multimania Challenge.
Oh, wow.
Pretty nice. They got this men's, women's, and kids. On the back, we got a lot of sponsors for anyone who's kind of in the upstate Westchester, Putnam region. If you recognize any of them, please go, please visit, please help them out. They're doing a lot of great work for a line of duty family right now that could really use a lot.
Let me ask you something. Can that shirt handle 18-inch guns?
Well, you're going to have to buy one and find out, Bill.
Well, I have to cut a hole in the sleeve to...
Well, then rip it down the center and then buy another one. That would be a great help.
I was actually watching the workouts, the Team McLean workouts on social media, and it looked like it was something special, man. And I was very happy that this thing took off, and all the people that were out there exercising and on his behalf. So that was beautiful. Where can they go to find this merchandise?
So you can look up No Matter What Apparel. You can go to, which is a website, normal website. You can go to the Team Mulkeen Instagram page. I'm going to post it up on the story when we're done here. And then I'll post another link up on our Instagram as well.
All right, cool. And stick around, Brian. You got anything else?
Yeah, you know, I was actually pretty excited to sit here and meet Brian and talk about his book. I actually bought the book. I'm probably going to get kicked off right now for telling you when I bought it.
His copy, see? And I just finished it yesterday. And I don't always finish a book. I always tell the person, oh, yeah, I read your book, but I finished it yesterday.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You want this book back, Sean, or you got another one?
No, that's yours.
Oh, I can keep it. Okay. All right.
And so let's bring up our author. He's the author of My Father's Gun. He also has several other books that he's written. The book is about 3 generations of law enforcement here in New York City cops. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Welcome, Brian McDonald.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Sean, for the plug. Oh, you had to blow the dust off of that book. I understand that it's been out for a while, but
I'll tell you, I'm probably gonna get thrown off for dating myself here, but I read your book when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah, that happens a lot, you know.
Hey, he did a book report on it too, and he got an F.
Well, I wrote it when I was in 7th grade, so we're even, you know. No. So, yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure.
Well, now, your book was published in 2009, correct?
No. The hard copy came out in 99. And,
wow.
And
even older than that.
Paperback was 2000.
That's what I was reading.
9/11.
This is
yeah, that's
different.
Yeah,
1999. I don't know even if I was born then.
Right, it's kind of dated now, but
but you know something though, it still applies to today. It really does.
Yeah.
You know, history on the police department and every other facet of life repeats itself.
Right. It
Yeah,
should.
you know, I just had a chance to read what the book was about and stuff like that. And your grandfather, no, that would be your great grandfather, right?
Yeah. No. My grandfather.
Okay, so he came on in like 1890 or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
right,
When the
right.
city was, municipalities and the police was something brand new and fighting, combating corruption with Tammany Hall and stuff like that. But it's funny. The first thought in my head was, when your grandfather was probably on the job and then they had a new recruit class coming in, he probably told one of the recruits, "I can't believe you took this job. It's going to shit." Right? In 1890 something, somebody first uttered the words, "This job is going to shit."
I could see back then if they went into like a bodega or a deli or something and they tried to charge him, they probably clubbed the guy, you know? They charge him shit. They pay me nothing to do this job. Everything's OTA.
Yeah, everything was on the arm back there. That was one of my favorite parts about writing it, was doing the research, and I got no help from the police department, by the way. I mean, on that part of it, they helped. They had no records about my grandfather's time, and I got one page letter from them about his whole career, but through city archives and other records and newspapers and family stories and stuff, I was able to stitch something together. And it was a wild time to be a New York City police officer, I'll tell you. It was.
You couldn't even check the video. You couldn't check the video.
Yeah, there were no body cameras back then, I tell you. There's a story about William McKinley was the president, and he got clubbed one time. He was at a protest and he got clubbed.
I read that. That was great. I wish politicians today could get fucking clubbed, you know?
Yeah, he said, "Don't you know who that guy is? I don't care who he is. He's got to get out of here."
Clubbed or tased or just one of those huge cans of mace, just the whole face of it, you know?
But it was great, you know, and I mean, being a cop's kid was always separate for me. It always I grew up in Pearl River, New York, and Pearl River, New York, any of you guys know about it, was like cop land when I was growing up. There was also, and
still cop land.
Yeah, all sorts of cops. And on the block that I grew up in, there were at least 5 New York City police officer families, you know, and my father was a pioneer of it. He was one of the first guys. We moved out of the Bronx in the 1950s, and wow. I was just a kid, and he was one of the pioneers of moving out of the city. But it was all about cops. The Emerald Society. We went to pancake breakfasts all the time. I mean, from my earliest memory, went away. There was something called a police camp then. I don't know whether Bill, you even knew about that.
I had heard about it.
It was a camp in the Catskills that the cop families went to.
Yeah,
it was horrible, but it was wonderful at the same time. You know, it was really, really something. So.
Because there was no bodegas around it to get shit on the arm. Buy shit before they left.
I was gonna ask you about the research, and then you pretty much answered most of my questions with that. But like, I would imagine you started off with family, right?
Yeah.
Them about grandpa and stuff like that, and then it was time to expand it and go towards the archives. And you're saying that there really wasn't much in the way of records and stuff like that about the police officers back then. What were you actually able to get?
Well, my mom was alive. My mom died in the midst of writing the book. And this was actually, it doesn't go chronologically. It's my maternal grandfather, my father, and then my brother. That's the 3 generations. So it kind of does a zig. And my mom was alive at the time, and she had a great memory, and she loved her father. And being a cop's kid for her was a big thing. So she knew all about the stories and stuff like that. So I took it, like you said, I took from her stories and I jumped from there. I was actually in school when I wrote a proposal for this book. I was a bartender for 1,000 years. I was a bartender on the east side of Manhattan. And late in life, I decided to go back to school. And I was in a graduate school when I wrote the proposal for this book. And
you went to Columbia University, right?
Yeah, it was Columbia. Yeah,
you were sitting next to all those leftists.
It's funny. I write in the book. My brother was there when my brother was a rookie cop. He was up there during the riots, the the '68 riots and stuff like that. And I could see right where he was out the classroom windows. So
Right.
Oh my
he used
God.
to call me, he called me a bomb thrower too. He didn't
Yeah,
trust
well,
the
there's
fact that I
still
went.
vestiges of
Columbia.
radicalism at Columbia. Look, they have Catherine Bowden's a professor there.
Yeah, I know. That was there's a circle of, I forget the book's name, but there's a great book about that whole, you know, the heist up the Brinks robbery up in Rockland County and
Right.
how all of that came around. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was in Columbia, and you know, one of the things that school did do, they drove into you that all of this has to be researched and reported. This isn't just family stories. You can't do it that way. So I did. I worked my ass off and tried to find as much through city archives, New York City archives, and newspaper archives and other things to bring out. And you know, there was my grandfather was a part of a rescue of a fire called the General Slocum fire. Over 1,000 people died on the East River. It was like this huge, before 9/11, it was the biggest catastrophe.
It was a boat, a ship out on the water.
A boat. It was out on a Sunday cruise, and he was working on the east side. The precincts were different, not numbered the same way, so it wasn't the same numbers. But he was on, and they actually put the cops on boats and brought them out there to be part of the rescue. And I was able to track down 2 women, one woman that I talked to for the book, and then there was a documentary made, the History Channel did a documentary on the book. And for the documentary, I was able to reach out and find this other woman who were both on this book. It was 1904, this thing happened, and they were alive. One was 104 years old, and I interviewed her, and she was—
Thanks to your grandpa, they were alive.
Was she still
Thanks
hot?
to your grandpa, they were alive.
Yeah, that was thanks to, well, the one actually was 99 years old. Oh, no, the one that was 104, thanks to my grandfather. He was part of a rescue. I found it was an incredible story. I found out that the tugboat he was on helped in the rescue of this woman who was 104 years old, had about 60 grandchildren and great-grandchildren and all that stuff. And because of if not for my grandfather and his partner, a guy named Cooney, they wouldn't have, she might not have made it.
She wouldn't have lived past that day.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I hadn't,
said,
you know,
Brian, a lot of the research you did, the police department wasn't that cooperative, right? Getting you the information.
Well, for his, only because they didn't have it. It wasn't like they were holding back. When I was doing my father's, I went to, I mean, they were great. I got to talk to Safer. I got to talk to everybody. And I went down to, in the basement of one police plaza, they have the archives room or whatever. And they just let me go. I mean, I was in that room for about 2 hours looking more than that, about half a day looking for stuff for him. And I got a lot of good stuff on my father. My father's era was also a very colorful era of the police department.
Your father was the 4-1 squad commander as a lieutenant, right?
He was a 4-1 squad commander. Here, I have something I'll show you. Hold on. This picture, we took it right off this picture. It says Frank McDonald, squad commander 4-1. I don't know whether you can see it.
Yeah, I can see
wow.
it.
He was hanging. I think it's the what is the 4-1 precinct now? It's borough.
It's the Detective Bureau for the Bronx. It's their headquarters.
It was hanging on the wall. This picture was hanging on the wall when I went up to do the research, and the guy says, "You want it?" And I said, "I don't know. My father would be pissed you take it off." He says, "We got another one. Take it." So he handed it to me.
Oh, that's great. That's a great picture.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be a detective or a sergeant and come in late or hungover with him as the boss.
You know, he was a different, first of all, he didn't grow up in New York. He grew up in Pennsylvania. His father was a coal miner. He was a different guy. If he wasn't a cop, he would have been like a college professor. You know, he read all the time. He was a very quiet man. He wasn't like, I mean, he later on in his career, he had a bunch of guys, they used to call him the Rat Pack, and they would go on the arm to all the clubs in Manhattan and everything. And according to him, he was in the Copa the night Billy Martin and Mantle got into a fight with the guys from the half a mobster guys.
Yeah, I read that story in your book.
But he was more of a quiet guy. You know, he wasn't your prototypical or stereotypical cop guy. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. I mean, oh my God. straight and
Kind of
narrow.
ironic that your brother became a cop, and maybe took after the maternal side, and you became the author and your father, like you said, liked to read, and he was a quieter
Yeah,
guy.
oh, that's interesting. I never
You know what
thought
I'm
of.
saying? So you both took like traits from each other, each parent.
I think Frankie, my brother, became the best of all of them. He had a piece of every of them because he was smart like my dad, and he could see it, but he was an active police officer. Frankie was an active police officer, and I know he's my brother and all of that, and you always talk highly about that. But I didn't interview, and I interviewed a ton of people that worked with him. I interviewed no one who said that he wasn't one of the best police officers they ever worked with. And
Well, he was an original street crimer, right?
yeah, he was in the original street crime unit.
I think that was what,
now no longer.
1972 was that?
Yeah, 1972. And sensational stories. I mean, they all dressed up then. They all had costumes.
Like they did the
Like they were a
decoy stuff.
Broadway
back
show
then.
or something,
Yeah.
The,
Muggable Mary Glatsky, right?
Muggable Mary was in that unit. Yeah, he worked. I forget the fella's name that he worked with, but the guy, he could have been he would have been an Academy Award-winning actor. The guy had gotten mugged even more than Muggable Mary got mugged. So it was a lot of fun.
That's a unit that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't
Shame,
exist anymore.
When you said that they were helpful to you when you went to look up your father's records and stuff like that. I forgot. I'll get back to it. I had a thought there, and now
It was interesting. The one thing that when I was down there, they had this one box, and it was full of this 8mm film, and it was surveillance film. There was a lot about the Stakeout Squad. I don't know whether you guys remember the Stakeout Squad. There's a squad they put together. They were all upstate guys. They were hunters. They put them in these places that were getting knocked over all the time, and they were hiding in the back. They'd come out of the back they'd have surveillance on the bodega. They'd come out of the bodega. The guy would be holding it up, and they'd say, "Put your hands up," and the guy would put his hands up. I mean, they made so many arrests. But anyhow,
They also killed a lot of people.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to leave.
It was freeze. If they didn't, it was boom.
Yeah, because what would happen is the robber would turn around with the gun in his hand, and they just shoot him. Yeah, but there were these 8mm films, and they were surveillance films that the police department was making, and one of them was the surveillance film of John F. Kennedy's birthday party at Madison Square Garden, where Marilyn Monroe sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to him. Wow. And out of all of the thing, there was about 10 cartridges. That one film with Marilyn Monroe was missing. That went south. Somebody's got that in their pocket for posterity. So, yeah.
Oh, the question I wanted to ask you was this your first book that you wrote, My Father's Gun? Because just
Yes.
as far as access goes, when you go to 1PP and you start telling them I'm writing a book, anybody can say that.
Yeah, no, everybody can say that. Yeah, it was, and that was definitely a problem. That was definitely.
What did you have to show them as far as did you have to show them what you had written already, or did you have to?
Yeah, I had some hooks. I worked in a place called Elaine's when I was a bartender, and when I was there, it was there was a lot of Bratton. I mean, that came later, but Bratton, Jack Maple. All of these guys used to hang out there all the time. And
you know where I was, Brian, when you were there? I was at Marty O's across the street.
Oh yeah, I know Marty O's very well.
Maybe not during the same years, but Marty O's was where the poorer cops went. We didn't rub noses with the illiterati in Elaine's,
So I burnished Elaine's as my entree into this place. There was a retired detective named Wally Millard, first grade detective, right out of Central Casting, and Wally knew everybody. And Wally was very instrumental in getting me contacts and saying this guy's legit and everything. So God bless him. Rest in peace, Wally.
What was so you're working at Elaine's as a bartender? And you're writing this book. What was your writing schedule like?
Well, I wrote in the morning. I mean, I worked. Lane's was a late night joint. It went to 4:30 in the morning. It was late. And it was right across the street from a place called Rathbones. And Rathbones would be, it was a big firefighters bar, fireman's bar. So one day I remember on St. Patrick's Day, there was a fight there and like 3 squad cars showed up. It was the greatest fist fight I have ever seen in my life. In my life. It was like an Old West scene out of an Old West movie. Like the doors opened up, bodies were flying out. They fought in the street for about 20 minutes. It was the greatest. So, but then there was Marty O's across the street on the other side that had, that was, a lot of cops hung out there. And Elaine's a lot of cops. And, a lot of, brass hung out there. But also we had detectives. The guys in Central Park, when the Central Park jogger case happened, all of those detectives.
Robert Chambers.
Yeah. Oh, no, he was the preppy.
Mike Sheehan you're talking about.
Yeah, Mike Sheehan used to hang out there before he went to Fox. He got a job with Fox News after that. Right. And
what did you say? What was the case then? You talk about the Central Park 5 then? Is that what?
Yeah, the Central Park 5.
Oh yeah, because when you said Central Park, I immediately thought of Robert Chambers because I know that Mike used to hang out at Elaine's, and Mike is. Went upstate and interviewed Robert's girlfriend, and right. he actually got somebody to come and record it, videographer. And the story that he tells was he was taking a whiz, and in the bar because he stopped off to have a couple while he was waiting for her to come, and he just looked up and there was a videographer, and he thought to himself, why don't I just call this guy up and see if he's available? Maybe he can come down and record this interview. And that's the reason why he got the job with Fox.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
And that was the thing that precipitated it, because now they could use this footage as opposed to just a regular interview on a 5, even if it was the best interview in the world. Now that they had her on tape talking, and they had him, and you talked about a detective that looked like came from Central Casting. Yeah, Mike was another one of those guys.
Yeah.
And it just fit. So he started going out and having drinks with, I think, who was the owner? Rupert Murdoch owned it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So he started having drinks with Rupert Murdoch. And some people play golf. Other people go for drinks. Some people do both.
Well, I got to tell you, he was great. He turned out to be a great reporter for them. He did a lot of good stories for them, and, could do the cop stories too,
Yeah, he hit that horse.
Oh, that's right. I think he was coming out of Elaine's.
He lost his job.
He might have come out of Elaine's at the time. We had a lot of that. At Elaine's. I had Joe Pepitone in the bar one night. The last thing he did was he said, let me have one more. And I said, Joe, you've had enough. I don't want to give you one more. Give me one more. And I said, all right. I give him one more. The next morning, the front page of the Post is him standing next to a crumpled car that hit about 3 sides of the Midtown Tunnel going.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I mean, thank God he wasn't hurt, but
yeah. Joe Pepitone, man, a New York legend.
He used to take his wig off at the bar. He wore a wig. He was big about the hair.
Now we got to cut that part out.
So he hang it up when he walked in?
No, it pull it up off his head, like just to make you laugh.
I love guys like that. Those are my favorite guys that wear it, but they're not vain. You know what I'm saying? It's like a hat.
Yeah.
So did you ever write any stories in regards to things that you witnessed or people you spoke to at Elaine's?
I did, actually. I actually wrote a book about it. It's called Last Call at Elaine's. And it was about my time there. It was about a lot of things, but it certainly had a lot of the moments at Elaine's. It was picked up by somebody to do a television series. That was about maybe 9 months ago. And I haven't heard anything since, so I don't know.
With the Corona shutdown, maybe soon production will pick back up.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I didn't know, my father's gun, the History Channel called up, and I didn't expect that to do any, be made into anything on television. And, they did a really, really amazing job on that. It won a couple of awards. It did really well. I mean, the way they shot it and everything was
Yeah, I was able to find a clip from it. I put it up as a promo for the interview today.
Oh, really?
The book is very easy to find. The actual documentary the History Channel made is super difficult to track down. I've been trying for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't know why, for a while there where you could get it on Netflix or one of these things, but then it only lasted a couple of.
You never know. I mean, just if you really want to get talk about controversy. I mean, maybe because it has the word gun in it. maybe because it has to do with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Seems like during this period of time, there's a lot of things getting canceled, disappearing, working its way to the back of the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Yeah,
not
no,
in
true.
favor right now, the powers that be can move you back all the way to the back of the line.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
What was it about Elaine's that made it so special? Was it the owners? Why did it attract all these?
Yeah, I mean, she was a character. She was a big, heavy-set woman. That's her. That's the poster up there behind me. She was a big, heavy-set woman. She was abrupt. Let me put it that way. I mean, she didn't give a flying who you were or what you were. She told you. As a matter of fact, if you didn't eat dinner in the place, she didn't want anything to do with it, except for the guys at the bar and the cops and the firemen. She loved New York City cops. She loved the people that worked in New York City. She was like a Queens girl. She grew up in Queens, and so she had this real affinity for people. But for some reason, her personality drew these first famous authors. You name the author, they were there. I mean, from Norman Mailer to Kurt Vonnegut to Hunter Thompson to Joan Didion. You name them. Just an array of the kind of authors you read when you go to a college literary class. You read these authors. They were there on a nightly basis, but there were also movie stars. I served everybody geez, all the names of I'm going out of my head right now, but. The Terminator, what's his name? Schwarzenegger to
I did security for him.
To you name it. I just served everybody there.
So that was the deal. She wanted you to sit down, have dinner first, and then work your way to the bar.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, she was okay if you went to the bar if you were like a working person, but if you were a famous person, you came in, you just wanted to sit around looking pretty. She had no time for you. Out the door. She threw people out the door. She was on the front page of the Post for throwing somebody out the door. So she was a character. I loved her.
When you say abrupt, I just thought of New York. New Yorkers have a way of, they don't have much patience for stupidity.
No patience at all. No patience. No patience at all. And, you know, she was a big part of me going back to school. She said to me, I had been working there for about 6-7 years. I was like in my late 30s. And she said, what are you doing? She says, you're wasting your time. You're going to be a bartender the rest of your life? Go back to school, do something. So I did. I went back to school.
Well, that says it all right there. Anybody who could just spit that little bit of knowledge and actually motivate somebody to do it.
Yeah.
That's what makes her special, I guess. And that's what made the place special.
Yeah, it made the place unbelievably special.
What year did you go back to school?
I went back. Well, I had to get my undergrad. I didn't have a college degree. I had nothing. So I had to go, and I went to Fordham in Lincoln Center. They had a campus in Lincoln Center. And at the time, you know, kids today, to get into Fordham, one of these schools, you got to do a lot of stuff to get in. They don't just let you. But back then it was a lot easier. You know, they were picking people up off the street. I was one of them. So I went to Fordham, and it took me a while because I was working full time at night. You know, so it took me a while to get, I think about 6.5 years to get 4 years. And I started doing some writing in undergrad, and one of my teachers that taught a writing class called Columbia and said, I have a student that I think would be pretty good. Why don't you give him a look? And they waitlisted me. I didn't get in right away, but then an opening happened, and they let me into.
Did you have a hook? Someone make a phone call?
I could have had Elaine make
like the police department, you know?
Yeah.
You had a rabbi.
I had a rabbi, a literal rabbi.
You had a rabbi.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, he said 6.5 years to do 4, and I totally get it. That's what it took me to get my degree. Some people call it diploma. I call it a degree. Yeah. But yeah, it took me like 6.5 years to get out of high school.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew that was a setup for your joke.
I thought you were going to laugh when I said degree. Some people call it degree. I call it a diploma.
Yeah, but you got a degree in life. There's a whole different story. You know, I mean,
no, Brian, I went back to college in 2000 to get my master's degree. And one of the big stumbling blocks then was that if you didn't have just adequate computer skills, you were fucked. You know, and I just basically was just learning how to do Microsoft Word. I was horrible at it,
Right.
And just almost at the exact same time, I went to John Jay. I got transferred to homicide. So my whole schedule changed, and I was like, "Oh shit, how am I going to do this now?" Somehow I was still able to do it, but that was the hardest part. I mean, you probably didn't have to deal with computers. It was before computers, right?
Yeah, I was like right on the cusp of it. Like in graduate school, it was like that. I used to kid with the people in class with. They used to say, "Well, we're going to Google it." I said, "Google it." My Google was the guy at the end of the bar that knew all the questions, knew all the answers. He was the Google.
How long did it take to write My Father's Gun?
Took about a year and a half.
That's it?
Well, it took about a year and a half from starting to publication. So it was about.
Wow, that's amazing. That's fast. That's really, really fast.
I mean, I don't want to act like I'm really something, but I
Well,
write them
after
really,
that was
I
published-
write them a lot faster now.
Brian, after that was published, were you banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time?
I had a celebrity I had about a moment or two of celebrity. Believe me, it was a moment or two. I was back tending bar not too long after. I mean,
So you went back to bartending?
well, you have to read Last Call at Elaine's. It gives the full story, but
Okay.
The club.
I made a couple of dollars with my father's gun, and it was more money than I ever saw. I had a lot of money in my pocket. I was a bartender, so I wasn't putting it in a 401k or anything. I was carrying it around in my pocket mostly.
Can I ask you something? When you were tending bar, were you drinking?
No, I was,
That's why you were able to do it. If you were drinking, you would have been finished.
yeah. So I had I stopped drinking, and the whole point of My Father's Gun is I went back drinking, which was a mistake. But I haven't had a drink in a while, so that's that.
Yeah, I tended bar downtown before I went on the police department at Pete's Tavern on 18th and Irving.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Henry supposedly wrote The Gift of the Magi.
Oh, yeah.
People come in the bar and go, "Is that the booth where O. Henry wrote The Gift of the Magi?" I go, what the fuck do I know? It happened in the 1800s,
Yeah.
Supposedly, this is the tavern O. Henry made famous, They should
It's
say
famous
that about
tavern.
Elaine's if it was still there. This is
Yeah, it's a famous tavern.
that Brian McDonald made famous.
Yeah, no, I didn't get a lot of fame out of the whole thing. When the movie debuted on the History Channel, the first night they showed it, I was working behind the bar, and I had it on the television on the bar, and somebody yelled at me to put the Rangers on, so I had to turn it off.
So obnoxious writing. You should have been like,
That's the best story ever. I get it. You wrote a book. Can you put the Rangers on, please?
The Rangers.
Mr. Big Shot over here writing books. I wonder what the Rangers.
Who was the best tipper that ever came into Elaine's?
That's a good question. There was a guy. Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. I can't. He was a music producer, very famous. Al Pacino played him on a television movie. He.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Phil
Ronettes. His wife was
Phil Spector.
Phil Spector. He was
later did a murder. He murdered his.
Right. He used to come in and first he was on something. He was circling around the moon when it'd come in. But he would have like one or two. He'd drink like vodka and cranberry or something, and have two of them, and leave $500 tips. Oh, my hand to God, my hand to God. The check would be back then maybe it was $3.50, $4 for the $3.50, $7 for the drinks, and it'd leave $500 tip.
Wow.
He came in. It was like nobody got served. Everybody. It was like moved.
He came in. You were fucking applying an alcohol prep pen to his undercarriage. He was spaced out, man. And it'd sit at the piano and it'd start playing, and he couldn't carry a tune in a wheelbarrow. I don't know how this guy made all this money in music. He was like, he was the producer of the Beatles too.
I know.
Well, his thing was he created the wall of sound.
Wall of sound. That's
and
it.
Trapped everybody in this tiny room, and the acoustics were bouncing off of each other. So when you said that he was walking around and it was all in his head, the way he hears things is probably different than everybody else does.
Yeah, that's probably
maybe he's just taking it all in. Maybe he's in another world. the shooting of that girl, by the way, he was a big gun aficionado. I mean, the guy always packed, always had guns around, tons of them. And I think, from everything that it says, he was, like you said, crazy, but I have a feeling like it was an accident. He just pulled it out on her.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
my theory. I could.
But he was always playing with guns. Anyone knows you don't play with guns, especially if you're drinking. You don't play with guns.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
he was crazy. I mean, I had he was friendly. He became friendly with Jack Maple for a while. Jack Maple from the deputy commissioner. And
Father of Comstat.
yeah, the Comstat. He was the guy that
There was supposedly he wrote the plan of Comstat on a napkin in Elaine's. That's how legend has it.
Yes.
Same thing that O. Henry wrote Gift of the Magi. I'd like to see if they have a videotape to that shit. Oh yes, he wrote the plan.
Yeah, he wrote
Comstat on a napkin at Elaine's.
I mean, he'd drink like glasses of champagne. He was a very, he was an odd duck, that guy. He was a
Maple?
Maple, yeah.
Yeah, well, he wore bow ties. He wore
bowler hat. Yeah.
A Hamburg hat was his, and they said one time he thought he was going to retire before he was promoted to that position. He took a huge pension loan and just stayed at the plaza and lived large for about a week or two.
Yeah, that's right.
The whole pension loan, just drinking and partying.
That's right. That's right.
When we came on the job, the old timers would say, "Hey kid, take a pension loan every 6 months. It's your money. Don't leave it in there." That was exactly the wrong fucking decision. The pension pays 8.5% if you leave it in there.
Yeah.
Old timers like, "Yeah, it's your money. Take it out." We're like, all these old timers wanted to be financial advisors. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They were all clueless.
It's funny you mention that. You can't even take pension loans anymore.
I know. I heard that. That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I guess in the long term, in the short term, we're not at top pay. It's a struggle.
Yeah, it is a struggle. I bought my wife's engagement ring with a pension loan, so look at me talking shit. I wouldn't be married maybe if I didn't buy her that nice ring.
It's funny that sitting at a bar and with having a pen handy and some paper and jotting down your thoughts, and as you get more inebriated and your imagination starts expanding, you become more creative and you become maybe funnier, but you got to write it down.
You got to put it down.
Listening out there and you want to write a book, because Bill and I are both comics. I've been doing it way longer than Bill, but people are always fascinated by comedy and comedians, and they're always asking you questions, and they always have a joke. Oh, I got this whole bit for you, and no, you keep it for you when you want to do it. But the thing is, with writing, I'm sure it's the same thing. Once people find out you're a writer, I'm sure they always want to. Oh, I got a good book. Especially cops. Every cop thinks they have a good book. Michael O'Keefe talks about this a lot. That every cop thinks they have a good book. You might have a nice story, but do you have a good book?
Yeah.
What's the difference between having a good story and having a book?
Well, yeah, it's that's a really good question. It's like first of all, it's length. People don't understand how much work goes into a book and how much time and the structure of it and how you have to keep the reader interested through 300 pages. It's a great cop story, and I've written tons of them. You could do it in 3 or 4 pages. And then what? Then what? What are you going to do? And it's also, these stories have to fit into a larger narrative that you're trying to get across. With me, with My Father's Gun, it was about, being a kid, seeing this through my eyes, through an outsider's eyes, as close an outsider as you can to the police department, but still an outsider, a family member, and to keep that going as the narrative, as the camera through the whole story. So, it's just a matter of how much work goes into it, But I will say this, that, talking to guys on the job like Sean is always a hard proposition. I don't know whether it's changed today, but when you guys were cops, you as a reporter, as an outsider, family member or no family member, nobody's going to talk to you. They're not just not going to talk to you. After they retire, you start to loosen up a little bit. And, you know, luckily, if you're lucky enough to get a few drinks in them, then they loosen up a little bit more. And I found that it was much easier for me because, you know, all of the members of my family were retired at the time, to talk to the cops that surrounded them, because they were all retired. You know, cops on the job are they're a tough lot to break as far as an, and you know, you can understand it.
They don't trust anyone.
They don't trust anybody. Yeah.
But also, too, you're in the throat.
You taught your whole time not to talk to the press. You taught not to tell this person anything. And there's a lot of truth to that. You know,
Sure.
I've been at homicides and press was there and press reported on the homicide. It's not even what happened. You know what I mean? They
Right.
just made shit up. When they didn't have the facts, they made shit up. So
Right.
how can a cop trust telling
Right.
people stuff when they just make
And then put your name to it, and it's going to come out backwards.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, a
I
lot
would
of it
get
has to
someone
do
like
with
Sean, who's a young cop, and he's an active cop, to write things down and to have your own diary and keep notes. I always wished I did. And then people would tell me, oh, you should keep it because you have some great stories. And I didn't. So now I'm getting to be an old fuck. And you start forgetting this shit. And
Yeah. Right.
I mean, we've all had people come up to us and say, hey, you remember when we did this? And I have no recollection. But I act like I do. I go, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
You know, two things. First of all, Sean's an anomaly because Sean has the ability to actually be in the throes of it, be on the job, but also be looking at it from a bird's eye view. He has a good grasp of what's actually going on around them. Most cops, they get on the job, and between the actual tour of duty and trying to still have this bubble and live a life, be it with family or girlfriend, whatever it is, you don't want to like take in too much. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, it's just too much thought going about it. Just tell me what to do, where to go. I don't want to really have to be conscious of anything right now, or too conscious.
Right.
So that's the reason why I think a lot of cops don't talk, is because they don't really have an opinion right now. And even if they did, who gives a shit? I got to go to work tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? We look at it with nostalgia right now.
Right.
We look at, you know, standing at a protest and because we survived. When you got to go and, you know, God, these poor guys that got to go out every night now and deal with some stupid protest. Those guys, they don't want to talk about it anymore when they're home. They want to just try and squeeze in a couple hours of normalcy.
I think the only one that actually did it on the job was the guy that wrote Blue Blood.
Yeah.
Because but he did it under an assumed name. He wrote a bunch of stuff for the New Yorker magazine under an assumed name.
Are you talking about Ed Conlon?
Yeah, and Conlon. Yeah. Who's, by the way, a terrific
Yeah,
writer, a monster writer, very, very smart guy. I met him a couple of times. Nice man.
I've gotten to meet him too. Aces, complete gentleman.
Yes. And it's a great book. Blue Blood is a great book. Yeah.
You know what it is, though? If you're a writer and like he did it under a pseudonym, but had people known he was writing that while he was actually on the job, he would have had a lot of problems.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of jealousy. People would want to shut you down. People would be like, don't write anything about me, you know, that kind of bullshit. But
Sean, is he back on a job? Is he in DCPI or something?
He has a position with DCPI, yes. That's where I met him through.
Oh, okay.
He's in the PC's office doing some work like that. I'm not sure if it's exactly DCPI, but something in that realm, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a sentiment amongst the job where be careful what you say, because unfortunately, if you have a bad boss or somebody who is evil, really just not a nice person, they'll look to sabotage any good that could happen to you if they don't like you.
Right.
So you always, like, for example, what's your favorite day off? Oh, I love Mondays and Tuesdays. Well, now you're stuck on the weekends, asshole. You know what I'm saying? So there's always that. Never tell them how you really feel. Because when I was on the job and I was a comedian and an actor, I kept it very tight knit. I had a pseudonym, a stage name, because I was always in fear that somebody was going to try and take it away from me. And the irony is that they actually were so supportive and so helpful. And nobody ever tried to screw me over. As a matter of fact, they try to make it easier for me to be able to do all these things that I wanted to do. I just wasn't aware of how there was moments there, but I still didn't trust it. I just always thought there was going to be somebody who was going to try to screw me up. But my first part on TV, I was in the Warrant Squad, and they drove me down there, and I auditioned for Danny Aiello. And when they told me they got the part, they were all waiting for me in the van. And I came downstairs and I was shaking my head like this. Like, don't worry, bro. We'll get to the next one. And I was like, nah, I got it. And everybody was
What was the show?
It was called Della Ventura. Like most of the TV shows I've been on, it was short-lived.
Right. Well, you had a big star in it.
If you book me and you're looking for another job, you want to get out of this job, book me for your TV show. I'll guarantee it gets canceled within that first season. No, but
when you were doing stand-up, did you do material from the job though? Did you do?
I waited until I retired.
After you retired.
Yeah, I just didn't. I didn't want to get into it.
A lot of Rosario material on that.
Yeah, but also too because just with the audience, or once again with the job. I remember when I first retired, looking in the audience, and I don't even know if I was completely retired yet, but I saw 3 suits there, and they were looking at me. It was almost like looking at mobsters, but they weren't mobsters. I was like, these guys are on the job, and they're watching me, and they're listening to what I'm talking about, because I was the word must have got out. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but I'm not a paranoid person.
Right.
The word must have got out that I was doing cop material, and they wanted to see what it was about. Because I was on terminal leave. That's what it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 months there.
Yeah.
I already started working. Like in my mind, I was already retired. I remember being at Caroline's and seeing these 3 guys. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, how did these guys get here? Why would you come?
Yeah.
To watch a comedy show if it wasn't specific for me? And not laughing, by the way, just shaking their head, looking at me, like almost telling me we're watching you.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. A couple of years ago, I was out line of duty. I got hurt in an accident at work. And, like if you're out, you're always nervous they're going to come visit you. Like, don't leave your house, everything. So there was one day I'm looking out my window and there's an unmarked. I live in the Bronx, so a couple of houses down from me, there's an unmarked with like 4 cops sitting in it. And I'm like, are these guys really come to check on me? Like, I just got out the hospital, like this is the first day. So I come out there and I'm like, are you guys okay? And they look at me and they book it, they take off flying. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I go back inside. So where I work is where, like, if you have a DWI, they come bring the DWIs in to get tested. So like a couple months later, these guys come in with a DWI. And they see me and they're like, you work here? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, we were supposed to be at court. We were, getting a meal over there and hanging out. We thought your inspection's coming to bother us. So we took off. So such an air of paranoia around everything. I thought they were coming to get me and they thought I was coming to get them.
Yeah, it's funny that, it's ironic. It's that they probably were just Midtown South or Midtown North detectives probably went down to have a drink and watch some comedy. And then, while they were waiting for their cases to pop up out of the machine, something, I don't know.
Brian, I want to ask you something relative to the book. The book is a big historical piece, basically. Your family coming over from Ireland. Your great-grandfather worked in the coal mines in Pennsylvania, right? Then your grandfather became a New York City cop. Your father became a New York City cop, a squad commander. And your brother came on the job. So is that history, you think, still happening today with the New York City Police Department, or has that mold sort of been broken because of the way policing is, and that there's other things maybe more educated people might go into? Although I've seen on my tenure, I've seen so many cops that had law degrees, cops that were accountants, had all this other stuff going on,
Yeah. I doubt whether it's to the degree it was. Now, I'm not an expert on this at all. All I can talk about is the experience that through my family. But, as it happens, I'm writing a book right now about the fire department, 4 generations of New York City firefighters.
No one cares about them.
Nobody cares about them. Exactly. So I'm not going to talk about that book anymore on here, but only in the sense to answer this question. And there were Irish Catholic family, from Ireland. The first one was the first generation in America and on and on. But you know, today, and the kid, the youngest one of this family is now, I don't know how old Sean is. How old are you, Sean?
I'm 29.
Yeah, he's even younger than you. He's like 25, but that's an anomaly. You don't see that anymore. Because let's face it, you know, you become a New York City firefighter or police officer today, you got to stay on your mother's couch to survive. You know, you don't make any money. You don't do it. And a family that has that many generations already in America, then the kids aren't going to be happy doing that. So they're not doing it. And I'm sure the way police officers are treated today is, you know, I live on 89th Street, right down from Gracie Mansion, and during the protests after George Floyd died, there was huge protests down there. I mean, huge, thousands of people right on the street, right on this very rich East End Avenue with you know, apartments that go for millions and millions of dollars. And out of the most of the kids, I would say about 60-70% of them were white, and 60-70% of them didn't live in New York. They came down from Westchester, they came down from Scarsdale, they came down, and here are these kids yelling to cops, and you know better than I, the people that get that duty are all the rookies right out of the academy. You know, these cops look like they were like 23 years old, and they're screaming at them, defund the police, defund the police. And what right do they have? You know, I'm you know, my brother calls me a bomb thrower because I'm liberal. I'm a liberal guy. I'm a Manhattan liberal. But what right do these people have to say that to police officers when you're coming down from Westchester? Your interaction with a cop is somebody gave you a parking ticket one day up in Larchmont or something. It made me so angry, so angry.
They really don't understand it. I tell you the truth. I'll say this, and I'll probably take a beating for it. I think the millennials are the worst generation we've ever had. The millennials right now. I really think they're pieces of shit. Really, they should be forced to go into the Marine Corps for 4 years before they're even allowed to open their mouth. You know, let them start going. I don't know, but I've been told. You know, let's do that. You know, let's come back and defund the police.
You know what's funny about millennials and Gen Z is that we raised them. Those are our kids. The reason why they are the way they are is because of us. And the reason why we are the way we are is because of our parents. So just take, for example, when we were kids growing up in New York, you could go out and get molested. As soon as you came across an adult, God forbid you were on an elevator with an adult, you were going to get touched. It just everybody got some type of sexual abuse story from an adult. Then anybody could hit you. Your neighbor could hit you. Your friends, imagine somebody came home right now and said, Daddy, you know, so-and-so's father hit me. What? But anybody could hit you and it was fine. So what happens? We had kids. We kept, we went to every game because our parents never came to a game. We watched them like they were made out of porcelain because of the sexual abuse that we remembered. You know, every single thing, we kind of altered it, and that's what we created. These kids, those are our kids. The participation trophies, because we used to stand in the sun waiting because one team won, and we used to have to stand there in the sun after the season was over. We just wanted to go home and play in the street, and we had to watch some other team get trophies. And we're like, this freaking sucks, man. I just want to go. I don't want to go to this thing. Some stupid dinner that you have to go to, you know what I'm saying? And watch all your friends that you know, get them MVP trophies and stuff like that. You sat there like an idiot. So we created them. You know what I'm saying? We created these kids.
It's a big time loser mentality.
What?
It's a big time loser mentality. A lot of people, you know, there are a lot of these protesters. Their hearts are in the right place. They see a lot of things are wrong. They want change. There's a bigger proponent of them that just loser mentality. Everything bit of success they have, you know, they always say, eat the rich, this and that. Like you said, what right do you have to tell someone how much money they can make? You know, go make that money yourself then. What's the problem? Why are you limit this? If you're saying limit billionaires, millionaires, at what point are they going to say, hey, this guy makes $200K a year, let's trash him? And you're seeing it now coming at the police, a civil servant. You know, someone making a city job, you're paying half of that, you know, whatever salary you're making is going right into taxes. You know, and then if you're a bobo like me and you still live in New York City, you're paying astronomical amounts to still live here. I don't even live in Manhattan. I live in the Bronx.
Yeah.
You know, I could very much easily go upstate, but I work in the Bronx. I try to live here and live in the community I'm working in somewhat. You know, and then you have people that come from all over the place and, you know, take this away, take that away. This should be free. You know, you just hate success.
Well, yeah, but they have this mentality that everything should be for free.
Yeah, you just hate success.
One time, and this kid, I was ragging the shit out of Bernie Sanders. I was like, how did this communist, how is anyone even listening to this guy? Yeah. And this guy goes, oh, we deserve comprehensive health insurance. I said, you need a comprehensive job, you little piece of shit. You know? Think about your comprehensive health insurance. So you've worked for about 20 years, you know?
Yes, healthcare shouldn't be as expensive as it is, but so this doctor should go work for free. The scientist making medicine, he should be working for free. That's preposterous.
Well, education costs a lot, but also at the same time, it's like we're asking these kids, you know, they go on college campuses to get opinions from these students that basically there to learn. Let's just say, for example, they don't know shit about nothing. And now you got somebody sticking a mic in their face, and they want to be on the right side of history. The professor's telling them this way. Everybody in their bubble seems to believe the same thing. So why not just regurgitate? I just want to be on the safe side. I don't want to make any enemies. And I really don't care about politics. I didn't give a shit about politics when I was younger. I didn't really pay attention to politics until I was 3/4 done with the job. And now everybody's being asked to be experts in what's going on in a media cycle that changes every 5 minutes. You can go on Fox News or CNN and see a new headline story every 10 minutes. So it's like, why are we putting so much pressure on these kids that they should be so freaking informed or be on the right side of their opinions? Nobody gave a shit what I thought when I was 18 years old, right. 16. And the younger you got, if you were a child, that's what it used to be. It used to be like if I went to talk to my mother and she was having a conversation with adults, she'd be like, "Get out of here! We're talking right now." A young person had no business going and interrupting adults talking. And now we're calling them over. Come over here. What do you think about this?
I want comprehensive health insurance.
There's nothing wrong with being informed, you know, at any kind of age and everything. But people really, you know, there's one thing having a voice. And what's crazy, what just seems so wild to me about these protests is like, Brian, so you said you were in school, you know, during a lot of the civil unrest in, you know, the 60s and 70s with, you know, the Columbia riots, and you throwing bricks at your brother out the window. But but in those times, that was, you know, pretty much the only way you could make a voice be heard. You know, what were you going to do? Paint the billboard on the highway and have someone see it? How else if you were just one person, not on any kind of TV or had some kind of print publication to be heard? Now with this advent of social media, like, I'll tell you, I was in college during the height of like Occupy Wall Street. That was right before I got on the job in 2012. And I couldn't believe, I was like, why are these, you know, I understand why people want, you know, changes, and that's a lot of, you know, financial inequities. But like, what do you really think you're accomplishing from sitting in Zuccotti Park in the tent? And then you have that small group in Zuccotti Park that are fighting for this. And before you know it, it's flooded with homeless people and EDPs. I'm like, you can go online. You can make, especially now with all, you can make your own show. You could do this, you could do that. You could have so many ways to get your voice out. Why in the year 2020 are you still out here smashing windows and marching in the street?
Because the news comes to watch it. Nobody comes to watch you. It's all about news. It's about getting your voice out there in the media. You know, my father, you said you were in Columbia. My father went to City College probably at the same time that you were in Columbia. And my father turned out, he got radicalized. I say he was a communist, a socialist, an atheist, and on the unemployment list for most of his life.
Those kind of all go hand in hand.
Your best jokes, Marco. What you say?
No, because the truth is, a lot of these kids that we're talking about that are getting arrested right now, young adults, not just kids, but young adults, they don't realize that they're fucked. They're on the list right now. Yeah. And if Trump wins again, they're not going to forget. Those people are going to be basically unemployed. If they're not facing jail time, they're going to be unemployable. And if they are facing jail time, all that Soros money or wherever you believe this money's coming from, what are they going to pay your legal bills for when we got to regroup and fight again in 4 years anyway? Because I don't give a shit if you go to jail. I abused you. You were a pawn. Right. All these people that are facing 10 years for federal offenses now, they're going to do the time because those lawyers are going to bail out as soon as that bill is not paid.
Right. Right.
Well, it's like that girl from the Catskills that very early on
Oh, right.
the Molotov cocktail inside the police van where there were 4 cops in. She's going to prison, that girl. You know?
As she should.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But they think that, oh, it's cool. I'm going to throw a Molotov cocktail, you know?
You know, if you look at some video and you see somebody trying to topple a monument or trying to burn something, it, like, especially with the burning, I saw a girl. There was a guy trying to light something on fire and it wasn't lighting. He went to go get a light from somewhere, or he walked away thinking that it was lit and it wasn't really catching the way this girl thought it should. So she went and she just pushed her hand into the piece of wood so it could connect with the flame and so it could get a better flame. Now you're just getting charged with arson. That's arson because you made the flame burn high. Her face is on the screen. All these people don't realize how the police work. They get the tapes, they get the pictures, they put 2 and 2 together. You've been sitting at home in your house going to all these other protests all around the country, and then all of a sudden you hear at your hotel room, and guess who it is? 3-4 months later, we thought you got away scot-free.
Yeah.
And all these people are bugging out. Like, how come they're letting them out of jail so quick? They get arrested, and then they're back out protesting the same night. You know why? Because guess what? If you sat down with me and I had a picture of you tossing a Molotov cocktail, I said, these are your choices. We're going to call you tonight. You're going to go to jail, and you're not coming out. Because we don't have to let you out. Now it's a federal offense. Or you can go out and call us tomorrow and tell us where the next meeting is, and then we'll meet every 3 times a week. Send me all your emails, or I'm going to tap into your, all your social media and get what I need to get. And there's 1,000 of them that have gotten arrested that are working with the police right now that nobody even realizes.
Oh, wow.
I bet you. That's just I have no proof of this, but
And they're also complaining about facial recognition.
Facial recognition's unfair, and ID me.
Yeah.
well, anything that gets you caught is unfair.
You shouldn't have got that dragon tattoo on your forearm.
Yeah.
I tell you though, that with all these protests and everything going on right now, you know, I always wonder if how everything is with social media, that it's just more readily available, that it makes all these experiences so much more visceral. Like, do we really think it's like the worst it's ever been with a lot of this unrest? Because like in the 60s, unless there was someone there with a camcorder and you saw a week later when the film got developed, you weren't seeing it right away. You know, like with the Columbia, you know, riots. And you say Columbia riots, but in my head, my mind's eye, I have a couple of still photos that seem kind of bad, but they're not moving. They're still photos, as opposed to constant everyday streaming of, you know, some of this unrest we see now. So it, like Bill said earlier, we were discussing your book, he said, you know, history repeats itself. Everything seems kind of cyclical, you know, which kind of, I try not to get too high or too low at how things get. You know, right now, again, kind of a low point, but, you know, everyone says about morale in the department and everything. I always try to, you know, stay, you know, upbeat, you know, and enjoy going to work every day, stuff like that, because as bad as things are, I hope, at least as far as the near future, this is the low point, and it can only go up from here. You know, like Bill said earlier, when your grandfather first came on and people said, no, the job sucks, the job's dead. You know, I'm sure it was a big turnaround having to take a civil service exam and not, you know, getting a loan from some mobster or some politician and beating his pockets come on the job to actually sit there and take an aptitude test and run laps.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure that was a big shakeup to guys in the department. The same way when I came on in 2012, and there are people that'll say the last 6 years have been more upheaval than the last 15 years, as far as you know, these use of force reports we have to do now with if there's no injury or complaint of pain, you still got to log it and document it. The body cam.
It's almost like, Sean, you have to rat on yourself. That's what they want you to do. Report yourself, because we can't, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's like the TRIs, the threat resistance inquiry reports, when they first came out, got a lot of people shook up. But then they made it where it's not also when you use any kind of force on a perp, when a perp uses the force on you. So say a perp spits at you or a perp takes a swing at you and you just grab him, don't collar him. Like some cops, you know, a lot of them afraid of doing paperwork. I'm not always the best at paperwork, but that's one I'm always sure to fill out, because you have to document these things. A lot of things that happen against us go undocumented and everything. But like the same thing with the body cameras, you know, there was everyone was shook of them and like, oh, this sucks and this and that. And I'm like, I'm sure when they first came out with radios, people were like, oh, this sucks. Now the job's gonna be able to buzz me wherever I am, as opposed to going to the corner to the call box. Now my boss will be able to buzz me anytime. You know, this job sucks, whatever. So years from now, people are gonna look at the body camera the way we look at a radio. And I'm sure I'm not trying to, you know, make a joke with you guys, but I'm sure wearing vests became a lot more prevalent in your time on. And I'm sure a lot of old timers
Something
like
about wearing a
sucks.
vest. I never wore that vest. Especially in the summer. I used to go to details in the summer and it was hot. I'm not, because that vest, you go like this, you open it up, you can see the smoke, the heat coming out from underneath there. And I always used to tell people, dude, I'd rather get shot right now than wear that freaking thing. I'm not wearing it.
I wore that vest no matter if it was 900 degrees. I wore that vest.
Not me, because at the time I was big. I had the big pecs. I was like, fuck it, I'm bulletproof.
He looked like he was wearing one.
It'll bounce right off my chest.
I want to bring up one thing too, because you talk about the history of the job. And in 1968, 10 New York City cops were murdered in the line.
Yeah.
And that's even by today's standards, that's outrageous. That's unbelievable. And it was from radical, like sort of terrorist groups, BLM, BLA,
The Black Liberation Army.
Yeah, and you know that's never. I don't think we've ever come close to that number ever again.
No, when something like that happens, normally now it's almost more like an EDP doing it than a true like radical, like we saw with Lou and Ramos back in 2014, and then Officer Familia in the 460 and the 4th of July a couple years ago.
Yes.
You know, it's funny you talk about 68 because that's probably when my father was in his throes. I used to go, well, more than that too, because I was able to walk. I was probably like 4. He was still going. And I remember going with my father in the subway and he used to hang up posters of Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, not John Lennon, Sean. And he used to have the glue. Back then, this is what social media was. You know, the way you promoted your shows, you'd go and you'd hang up these posters. And I was his lookout. And I remember always being so scared because I didn't want my father to get locked up.
And then Brian came by and saluted him.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't in.
And you know, it's funny, my father on his deathbed, he said to me, he goes, he says, I always hated the police, but I loved you. Isn't that funny that he said that? And let me, you know what I wanted to talk about? Oh, I just wanted to say this about morale, Sean. Just keep this in mind. A lot of your coworkers look forward to working with you because you have such a high spirit and you basically can dictate the morale there for a lot of them, because a lot of them they don't have. You know, they don't have your enlightenment, you know, the way you see things. So always keep that in mind. You know, even if you're having a shitty day, there's probably people.
I try, you know, especially with your guys' show here. When I first started listening, I would tell people like, you know, like we think we're really in the throes of it right now. But you listen to like Ralph Friedman and, you know, some of these real old timers, you know, he was I don't know if Brian heard about Friedman. He was a cop in the Bronx around the time your dad was in the 4-1.
Yes.
They probably know them.
Yeah, when things were well, that's where Ralph was an anti-crime, was the 4-1, a little bit after Brian's dad would have left. So like you gotta have a sense of perspective, you know, especially if you're someone who comes on this job and you're not from New York City. Me and my family's been in the Bronx since 1938 when they came here from Ireland. You know, same thing. We didn't go as north as Pearl River. We just, you know, settled, you know, on the Bronx-Yonkers border. But you know, same thing. We've been here, so. You know, that's another thing I liked about your book as well, was it was a history of the city and your family intertwines. You know, it was in the front row for a lot of it. And so you have a lot of people that come on the show that lack that perspective. They're from Long Island, they're from upstate, they're from other countries. And they come here and they're like, wow, like this sucks. Like this is never going to get fixed. This is never going to get better. And I'm sure if, you know, I was a cop like Ralph Friedman back in 71, when there's, you know, 6 cops in one precinct, Lower Manhattan, 6th precinct, I believe, or the 9th, get assassinated in 1 year. I'm like, this is bananas. What the fuck am I doing out here?
But Sean, what makes the job so much harder for you guys is the rules of engagement have changed so much. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Ralph Friedman could do things that would get you locked up today.
Well, he'd be in federal prison now.
Yes, and so the rules of engagement today, you have to be so much more restrained than cops back in the 60s and 70s and 80s even, you know.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
makes
but at
your
least
job so much harder. And like there's cameras everywhere. That makes
Yeah, we wear them.
it too. You know, like you're wearing it around. You're wearing that little thing around your chest, and yeah, nothing you do isn't recorded.
well, you know what? Why don't we find out where we can find Brian's books and hear some more about what he's working on now. Where can we find the books have you written and stuff like that? Do you have a website? Is there?
I don't, but Amazon has all the books. So you could go on Amazon. It'd be great.
We could get it for free if Sean has an extra copy. He sent me one.
Well, you know, it's funny with that copy I sent you, Bill. So when the History Channel special came out, you know, I'd watch it, and a little while later, my dad had seen it in Barnes and Noble, and this is around 2002, 2003, around there, right? It came out. I was in like middle school, so my dad got me the book. I had the hard copy. Some years later, around the time I was getting ready to come on the job, you know, I was thinking like, oh, I couldn't find the book anywhere. So I ordered another one, and that's when I sent to Bill. When I ended up moving out of my parents' house, I found it. So that's a copy I have now. But I had another one, so I sent it to Bill. But I tell you, I speak at career days in my old high school sometimes. And I do tell them, you know, if anyone's really interested in it, to get a real idea of, you know, what it's like to go through everything, even though some of these stories are from the 50s and 60s, a lot of it is very applicable to today. And I recommend your book a lot. So hopefully if you see a spike in sales around December every year, that's from me. Peddling it to these
Send my
kids.
copy to Mark because he never reads shit.
Yeah, you know,
Watch the movie, Mark.
I will now. Definitely going to do that. But it sounds like something I'd be interested in reading. I like the sound of it. I definitely want to. I'm going to check it out. I like those type of stories.
You know what's an interesting thing that I just want to touch quickly upon, Brian? And you're a writer for hire as a ghostwriter, right?
Yeah, I do a lot of
So
it.
if someone thinks they got a great book, they can hire you as their writer.
Yes, they can, and I'm very busy at that part of my life. I do mostly political books, and as you might imagine, the political climate today, a lot of people are writing books. So I'm very busy in that regard.
Wow.
How does that work? How does the ghostwriter?
Well, I actually work with a publisher. I work with one of the bigger publishers, and I have a business relationship with a senior editor over there. And she gets a lot of these books, and you know, it's people want to read about, but they don't know how to write, so they need to hire a writer. And
So basically, you go there and you talk to them.
I interview
They tell you
them.
the stories, and then you'll change their story into something. Put it on paper, basically, right?
I just put it on paper, basically.
Do they get a chance to read it first and approve it, or?
Oh, of course. Oh, these are. I've been very lucky. These are very high. I can't talk about who I wrote for, but they're very high profile political people. So not only do they read it, they have lawyers read it. They have assistants read it. They have people in there, whatever. It's vetted very.
Now, do you write it all for the New York Times still or no?
No, I haven't written for the Times in a long time.
Good, because I find their shit to be such fucking fiction. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm
the shit
happy
they
about
write.
that. Yeah.
The guy wrote a story the other day about the Gilgo murders. You would have think they solved the case.
Yeah.
The way the headline was, nothing's changed.
Well, the one thing I knew about working at Elaine's, and I have friends that work for the Times, so I'm not going to talk down about it. But when I was at Elaine's, you knew that the beat reporters for the tabloid papers beat the ass off the guys from the Times. The guys from the Times were behind the door. They were always got the secondhand information. The guys from the Post and the News, they were in the trenches. They did it, and they knew how to tell the story. So. Yeah. So, but you know, it's all show business today.
Yeah.
Do you teach a class on writing?
I did. I taught for a while at Fordham, and I taught in the CUNY system. I taught at a couple of the Kingsborough Community College. I taught at Queens College. I taught, as an adjunct, not on staff, but as an adjunct. I taught.
Give us if you. Before we close, give us after all these years of experience, give us some good advice for the young writer out there. Tell us how do we finish? There's something about finishing, even if it's shit, finish the freaking thing, right? And then work on it again, right? And make it a little bit better. But you got to finish it first, right?
Well, it's not, first of all, it's not as hard as people think. The reason I became a writer, one night I was at Elaine's and a very famous writer was absolutely passed out in his veal parmesan, drunk out of his mind. And I said to myself, if that guy can write a book, I can write a book. So from that moment on, I started to write. And the other thing is that it's discipline, man. It's just about discipline. I get up, I have the same routine I've had since I started writing. I get up first thing in the morning. It's the first thing I do. I got a big cup of coffee, maybe a bowl of cereal or something, but I'm at the computer as soon as and I'm up early. You know, I'm up like with the milkmen. So from 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning, the phone isn't ringing, the emails aren't beeping, nobody's trying to text me or anything.
You're talking 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours?
Now it's solid 3 hours, and that's all you need. I mean, it's not like I don't do anything the rest of the day. I do research, I do interviews, I do a lot of stuff, but the creative part about it, the craft part about it, sitting in front and putting the story down, is the first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, without question. That's what I do.
And
that's how you finish it. You know, that's how you finish a book.
In between projects or on a day that you're dry, there's nothing coming up. Are you doing writing exercises? Are you doing the 3 pages?
I used to do it. Very good. Yeah.
Well, I write too.
Yeah, I used to do that. I used to do the artist's way and writing, you know, that's where you get up in the morning and you just write the first thing that comes into your mind for three pages longhand. And it's a great tool. I did it for years.
Yeah, it gets you warmed up. It gets you, those are days that you don't have anything ready to go to. Before you finish the 3 pages, you'll already be on your way to some thought.
Exactly. Good for you. Yes, I did that a lot. And, you know, I haven't done it in a while. I've been too busy. You know, I work 7 days a week. I really do. You know, I work every day. I mean, I take time off when I have to take time off and stuff like that. But my priority is to sit in front of the computer and write. So that's
and organizing. You know, comics have a way of writing shit on little pieces of paper.
Today there are a lot of word processing systems. There's a thing called Scrivener, and it's kind of complicated, but once you get it down, you know, it has access to all of the things you're writing, and you have the ability to switch things around and to work on 2 pages at once and 2 chapters at once and things like that.
What's the name of that?
Scrivener, Scrivener, Scrivener.
How much do they pay you for shouting them out?
They should. You know, I paid a lot of money for it. No, it's not that much. I think it's like $79 for the program. So download it. So, but there's other ones too, Mark. There's ones that have come out since then that I think are easier. You might just want to Google up, you know, those kind of.
Yeah, I use Final Draft.
Well, that's great. I mean, for screenplays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the other stuff, I just use Word. You know. But you know, you have a tendency you write one thing on a yellow pad, another thing at work on a note, you know, and you got to kind of sort of you know, always sit down and put them all in one place, because these thoughts, you lose them, and then before you know it, you pick it up a year later, you're like, man, I could have used that in that line, those words. I love words. You know, joke writing is all about words, conservation of words.
I'm sure.
You know what I'm saying? And I listen to words all the time, and I'm always changing a word. And when you land on the right word, you're like, I got it. That's beautiful. You know, because it has to sound good in your own voice.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite jokes?
Oh, well, I'll give you an easy one. Well, I remember I was sitting with Lisa Lampanelli, who wound up becoming kind of sort of famous in comedy for a while. And I used to do a joke like as soon as I came out, because I was a lot thinner, believe it or not, even more handsome than I am now. And I used to say, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this guy really does well with women, right? And then I used to have and then it was a whole thing about how many girls I get. Then I have a strategy that never fails. I'm not that picky. So, like Lisa would all during this little writers meeting, she was like, I'm not so picky, and I'm like, man, but I always kept, I'm not that picky, because for me that word sounds more natural. But for her, so sometimes it's like just a subtle thing, but out of my mouth coming out. It's important that it sounds that way, you know. So yeah. So
my hat's off to you. I have a friend his name is Bill Sheft, and Bill was a writer for Letterman for 1,000 years, and he is so learned in what you're talking about, in putting words on in order on a page to make that funny. It's just incredible to me. It's like genius.
You spend a lot of time during the day just mixing the words up.
Yeah.
No. And a lot of times when I used to work as a tutor teaching young comics, I used to tell them, say it exactly like this. Then I go watch him on stage and they'd screw it up. And I'm like, didn't I tell you exactly what to say? Because people don't realize you add one word, you're expanding it. You're killing the beat. You're killing the, it's so funny how just one word makes a huge difference. And with the timing, with the beat and everything. And
it's like music. It's the same thing.
Would say?
It's like music. You gotta match up the rhythm with everything else in it.
Yeah, people can develop their own style, their own cadence, their own pattern of talking. That's what they mean by find your voice. And I always told young comics, listen, you're going to find your voice, but be funny in the meantime so you start getting paid. And one time I bumped into a comic and it was like 10 years later. He goes, you know, I thought you were messing with me that day where you said be funny in the meantime. But you were right. It's like, you know, you can find your voice, but don't waste the audience time trying to pontificate. Be funny. And then your voice will come, you know? So I look forward to reading from the book. We're already at an hour and a half. And believe it or not, I have a job to go get to right now.
This is great. Thanks a lot, guys.
That's why we did the early show, you know?
Yeah, I'm doing overtime tonight because I'm like, all my jobs are canceled. The comedy is there's really no comedy right now, stand-up comedy. I work in the police academy as an actor. I was doing training and it got defunded. So.
Yeah, those people that defunded the police, they fucked you.
I know. But they also screwed all these other guys that were just like legit actors.
Yeah.
But at least they're getting unemployment, those people. Well, now it's only down to like the 3 and change. It's not the extra 600. So, man, I can't. I'm so excited that we had you on the show. This was a really great one. I love picking your brain, and we want to welcome you back, man. I'd love to have you back on the show again, and you could cut on the progress on this book. You know, you could feel free, and we'll help you pitch it. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's about firemen.
So we're not doing any fireman show.
I got nothing against it.
He's writing a cookbook.
Yeah, you know, they want to have more police off the cuff. Let them be firemen putting out fires. That'll be the fireman podcast.
So, before we go, I just want to give a shout out to we got a new Patreon customer. He signed up for Dipped in Butter. His name is L. John. This old man. So thank you for taking part in our Patreon.
Funny, Mark, we're limping along with Patreon. What do we got? 30 now? 30 Patreon.
Yeah, listen, if you get one, we've been at it for a month and we got 30. So if you get one a day, that's good.
That's all right. Yeah.
What do you get? Listen, we're plucking away here. Times are tough, and we still have people doing the right, you know, digging deep into their pockets, and we're gonna keep. This is a great interview
Mark,
right
I
here.
don't know if you know, but someone on Anchor, where we were on 9 or 10 listening sites for podcasts, someone who just did a real crime episode with us is paying us $9.99 a month on Anchor, which is free. But in essence, he's giving us $10 a month.
Well, that was great. Give him a shout out.
Tim Muldoon, thank you very much.
Yeah. So for those out there, we have our Patreon. We're trying to make this show grow. We want to have some merch that we can give away to our Patreon customers, and that's coming in the future. But please subscribe to our Patreon. We have 3 tiers. We have the bucket, which is $7 a month. We have Polished Bill's Rack, which is $9 a month, and then we have Dipped in Butter, which is the 11th.
That's the premier one, because you know what it's like to dip them in butter.
We have great content. Bill's doing a true crime. I have my one-on-one interviews. I just interviewed Vicky Cooperman, who's a fantastic comedian, actress, writer, but she also got robbed at gunpoint right in Midtown Manhattan. at dusk, walking her dog by 6 or 8 kids on city bikes that they stole at gunpoint, put the gun right through her head. You hear the whole harrowing story. She's got great advice for women walking around the city right now. And please join our Patreon. You can check that out. And Brian, what else can we say except thank you?
I think you summed it up. You treated me great. It was such a pleasure to be on here, meeting all of you. Thank you, Sean.
We always warn people when you come on. Don't think you're going to be treated with like white gloves. I'm going to slap the shit out of you a little bit.
Yeah.
It was an honor. Hey, I used to work at 60 East End.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used to be a doorman there before I became a cop. As a matter of fact, I was working one night. They always told you, don't quit your job until you're officially sworn in. So I got the call. They found me at work, and it says, report to Brooklyn Tech High School at midnight and to be sworn in. And I went, and then I called back the midnight guy. I said, yeah, I quit. I went in there, swore in, and I had a call. Everybody was by the phones there at Brooklyn Tech. Yeah, I quit. Tell that guy to go fuck himself.
Just as a matter of full disclosure, I don't live on East End Avenue. I live on 89th Street. It's a big difference.
No, but you're in the area.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But
All
this
right,
is great.
so,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Thanks for coming on, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys.
And
Bill.
keep doing God's work out there, Sean. Keep
Thank
the
you.
morale up, man. They need you.
Trying.
All right?
Because Sean,
How
maybe
much
if
it
you
hurts,
take a lot of
Mark?
overtime, you could even be dipped in butter.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, I'm on behalf of police, midday police off the cuff or lunchtime police off the cuff, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we look forward to our next episode, which is going to be this Thursday night, where we're going to have, we're switching gears a little bit. We're going to have Tom Delgado. He does city tours, and he's going to give us an insight on all the people that get robbed on a daily basis now in New York City.
He's a tour guide and a stand-up comic, and he's got a law degree, just in case none of that shit works out for him, right?
All right, thank you so much. I'll talk to
Thanks,
you
guys.
later.
Thanks for having me on.
Later.